Well, every week we talk about rigs and techniques
Yep.
here at the CCA Workbench, and Dave, tonight is no different.
No, we're talking about triple tail tonight, and a lot of guys, are unfamiliar with the triple tail. A triple tail is like a giant black crappie.
Right.
They get to be about 40 pounds. That's a huge one. I think the Texas world record is something like 33.8 pounds, though. 33 pounds, 8 ounces. It's a big fish. It's a big crappie, and they're delicious.
Yeah, big 2 weeks ago was a 25-pounder you're talking about.
Yeah, well, they're really, really good to eat. And why they're called triple tails is they have their top lobe of their dorsal fin and their bottom caudal fin comes all the way to their tail, and it makes it look like he has three tails, but he doesn't. And what they do, what makes them so cool is the way that they feed. These fish are always around a piece of structure, even when they're little babies. When they're little babies, they're orange and black, just like sargassum, and they float next to sargassum upside down or on their side, and they just lay in the water until a little shrimp or a little crab comes up to get in their shade, and they pounce on it and eat it. So they're very ferocious. Usually, if you see them, you can usually get a bite out of them. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes you got to get a little tricky with them. And the best thing to do is kind of like, they're very curious too. They're kind of like a cobia in that respect, is like they like to hang around big things. But not only that, when a boat pulls up to a mat of sargassum, a lot of times you'll see the triple tail coming out of the sargassum up to the boat. Right. And if you have a long-handled dip net, you can get a big triple tail sometimes that way. Yeah, you got to be quick. But sometimes if they're not paying attention, you can net them. I've had friends net them a few times. The biggest triple tail I ever caught, I was coming in from an offshore trip, and we came up found a big mat of sargassum about 15 miles offshore, and said, oh, let's check this out before we keep on heading in. And as I got up close to the mat, you could see this giant shape. It looked kind of like a Nassau grouper, that color. And he went down, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a big grouper under here. So I tossed a whole ballyhoo that I'd been trolling, and that sucker turned over and followed it down to the bottom, and I felt him pick it up, and I thought, oh, I got a grouper on. No, it was about a 15-pound triple tail that ate a whole ballyhoo, which is, kind of unusual. When we target them, generally speaking, we try to use smaller baits, like that little shrimp imitation. That's a little gulp shrimp. That's a great little bait to throw at a triple tail. We'll go up and down a weed line looking for them, and if we see a piece of debris in the water, a bucket, anything that we see, we're always looking to see if there's a triple tail on it. And we always have a light spinning rod like this one, available with a 7-foot rod that we can throw to it and try to catch the triple tail. Now, one thing you'd think, you're using a little bait, you're trying to get these fish to eat little things, because they eat a lot of little stuff, but you got to use a fairly good sized leader.
Yeah, they got some pretty rough lips.
Well, not lips. His whole body is a buzzsaw. When you go to clean a triple tail, you will find thorn. He's got little spurs and stuff all over him, and his
gill rakers.
His gill rakers are incredibly sharp. So you got to be careful when you're handling them. I mean, seriously, they can cut you to pieces. You got to be careful with them.
Yeah, the other thing that comes to mind too, Dave, is I noticed that you got a lot of this stuff is weighted with a jig head.
Right. Did you want to
I do it also.
Without it?
Weedless.
Oh, of course. But what I have the jig heads for is a lot of times if you spook them and they run back under their stuff, it's hard to get them to bite. So a lot of times I like to make long casts to them. And especially if they're, let's say, on a wreck in real shallow water or something, if you get right up on top of the wreck or right up on top of the buoy or the crab trap that they're hiding under, it's going to be harder to get them to bite. So I like to be a little, have a weight on my offering, sometimes even a bobber with a live shrimp under it is, it's hard to beat it. You throw a nice and get you a select fat shrimp, kind of ones that you throw to a tarpon.
Right.
He's a beautiful shrimp for a triple tail. And if you find a nice wreck in shallow water and 20 feet of water, sometimes up along the beaches or in a bay somewhere, it looks like there's nothing on that, and you throw that shrimp on top of that structure, and anything that has a shadow can have a triple tail, because that's how they live. That's how they make their living. They're the shadow. They make their own shadow. They'll get into the shadow and be their own shadow and try to be a big leaf or a black plastic bag. They look like a black plastic bag a lot of times. I've come up on, let's get that black plastic bag out of the water. Oh, Nope, that was a fish.
Triple tail.
Yeah, because you can
Only
see him
the-
from a long way away.
Only the shadow knows.
Yeah, he does know.
Dave,
it.
I know
love
someone
your-
else that knows. Bree does.
I love Dave's plastic bag impression. It was really good of you.